I'm Karen Walker of Culture Smart, and a warm virtual welcome to my innovation showcase from Melbourne, Australia, on the psychosocial complexities of digital workplaces. I'm looking forward to your feedback and answering your questions. Let's start with a walkthrough of the lessons learned from the history of office and workplace design before I share a case study. In 1939, probably the most famous open office workplace is born. In 1965, Robert Probst launched his Action Office Furniture range, in his own words, to liberate the common office worker from the tyranny of the open office, by providing privacy, limiting noise, and a huge range of shapes and configurations for individuals to customise their workspace to their specific needs and preferences, from whom and what was in their line and sight, and even providing 55 years ago choices between sitting and standing desks. Management loved it and bought the customised furniture for their offices, but wouldn't invest in individualised workspaces for their employees. Hence the cubicle was born, much to Probst's despair. In the 1980s, hot desking begins. It's back to the open office layout, except far, far worse, usually without as much personal space or even an assigned space to personalise. Also without any privacy, limiting of noise and any sense of personal safety, creating bullying and micromanagement issues. Managers embrace the reduced real estate costs associated with more efficient space and occupancy management, whilst falsely selling the concept as benefiting humans' ability to work better together. Later rebranded as activity-based work layouts, offices started to resemble hotels, with a sprinkling of quiet cubicles, telephone boxes to make phone calls, random lounges, and a variety of meeting rooms that are solidly booked out, rarely available, meant to promote workers proactively moving between different workspaces that suited their needs for the work at hand. Research has shown that very few workers do switch their locations. Besides lack of availability, there's also the time and productivity costs of doing so. And somehow, we've ended up today back in cubicles, except they're virtual ones, with their own unique dehumanising effects and challenges that continue to perpetuate the non-individualisation of workplaces. Caroline Wolf, a mental health lawyer and a New York Times contributor, says, and I quote, "We are now starting to see Zoom fatigue, the term being used to describe the tiredness, anxiety, or worry resulting from overusing these virtual platforms. Video conferences are mentally exhausting. It's unnatural to have someone's enlarged face extremely close to you with prolonged eye contact. Non-verbal cues are lost, distorted, or delayed. The expectation that we can have normal professional and social interactions this way is unrealistic." In Australia, the so-called Fourth Industrial Revolution is here. Research highlighting that the global pandemic accelerated the adoption of digital technologies in 2020 to the extent that it equaled the equivalent of up to 10 years of historical rates. Digital technology enabled 3.2 million Australians to continue working during COVID-19. However, the suddenly fully digital workplace for those working completely remotely during lockdowns hasn't been universally positive, productive, or healthy. And the popular open plan and activity-based office layouts are an infection management risk now and for any future epidemics and pandemics. Of those organisations implementing a digital workplace without any other supporting non-digital workplace practices, only 13% reported productivity improvements, compared to almost 3 times the productivity outcomes for those that did. Implementing workplace changes such as increased flexibility in working hours, new initiatives to boost social connectivity, physical and mental health, increased investment in IT through tools, training and support, new management and reporting structures, and also increased staff pastoral care. Levels of productivity are related to levels of physical, social, mental and emotional well-being. For Australians working from home, approximately a third had differing experiences of lower productivity, no change in productivity, and higher productivity. The majority of challenges for many were psychosocial. Lack of work-home boundaries, distractions, inability to switch off and stay motivated, loneliness, online communication and collaboration challenges, and increased workloads. But the rise of the digital workplace is here to stay. Given the consensus on predictions of both workers and their managers, who are ultimately the decision makers on the future of remote working. The opportunity for organisations to reduce their real estate costs are huge, with a whopping 39% of all jobs in Australia estimated to be able to be performed from home. The design of virtual work and workplaces can be understood through various insights, such as level of job demands that create stress. High job demands require sustained effort and exhaust employees' coping abilities, leading to energy depletion and long-term health problems. And balancing these against levels of job resources, variables such as these are considered to be contextual characteristics of the work environment that foster a supportive culture. Insights should also include their home as a work environment. A recent Centre for Future Work report found only 77% of those working at home indicated their workspace at home was appropriate and safe. A recent report by SAP Australia and New Zealand found 1 in 4 of those working from home did not have a computer desk, had internet connectivity problems, had limited private space, and 1 in 5 said they did not have an external monitor. Others reported being caregivers for elderly parents with dementia meant keeping their cameras switched off and being on mute during virtual meetings, whilst others were embarrassed by their working circumstances at home, using fake backgrounds or remaining on mute due to background noise. The reality is, for very individual and personal reasons, although their role may be suitable for working from home, there will always be people who shouldn't be required to do so. Why the Fair Work Commission recommends that working from home should be optional. Responsibilities for inclusion and diversity include neurodiversity, and within this concept there is no normal to which work and workplaces should be designed. This encompasses dyslexia, ADHD and dyspraxia, as well as introversion and extroversion. When it comes to being on the introversion-extroversion spectrum, about 33% of us are on each end of the spectrum, with about 33% of us in the middle. Open plan offices and large group gatherings, physical or virtual, is exhausting for those at the introversion end of the spectrum, just as working in isolation, physical or virtual, is energy depleting for those on the extroversion end of the spectrum. At the heart of any user-centric design is designing for those individual human needs and contexts, which for digital in any workplace requires designing for individuals, not a one-size-fits-all approach. Quoting Michael Fenlon, the Chief People Officer at PwC, "The company asks all of our teams to create well-being plans using the framework of mental, emotional, physical and spiritual well-being, where spiritual refers to having a sense of purpose. We provided tools and examples and asked everyone on the team to have a personal goal and a team goal. We asked teams to visit progress against these plans on a regular basis, and we asked all of our leaders to lead from the front, to share goals they're working on and to serve as role models." Recent research by Deloitte in the UK also found that the highest return on investment were mental health initiatives and interventions that were personalised, achieving between £8 to £10 return on investment for every pound spent. My innovation showcase is all about whether this could be the moment for employees to finally act on the lessons from history of workplace design for knowledge workers, that needs are individual and deeply personal and need to be respected. Lessons reinforced by the large-scale digital workplace experiment the current global pandemic created. This is a case study associated with one of my coaching clients, an executive working in the healthcare sector, using the Australian People at Work Psychosocial Hazard Assessment to gain insights on how to improve the design of her work and working environment during hard lockdown. There weren't any associated workplace changes introduced as part of her increasing the time spent working from home. This is a summary of the overall Job Demands Resource Model Assessment outcome, which is of significantly higher levels of job demands, balanced against moderately concerning levels of job resources. I'll run through the academic definitions of these criteria, quoting a People at Work report on their model. Role overload occurs when an individual feels pressurised by excessive workloads, difficult deadlines, and a general inability to fulfil organisational expectations in the time available. Emotional demand occurs when employees are confronted with emotionally taxing, upsetting or disturbing situations inherent in the job that impact on them personally, and is particularly prominent in jobs that involve interactions with customers or clients. Cognitive demand is defined as the degree to which an individual must engage in cognitive monitoring and attentiveness in order to meet the demands of their role. Role conflict reflects the degree to which employees are expected to perform two or more mutually exclusive tasks simultaneously and has been described as incompatible demands and expectations placed on an employee for different groups or persons with whom an individual must interact. All these forms of job demands for my client are too high. Group task conflict refers to disagreements with one's colleagues regarding the work to be undertaken. Such conflict may involve differences in views about policies and procedures, disputes regarding allocation and distribution of resources, or disagreements in judgments and interpretation of facts. Group relationship conflict refers to interpersonal disagreements and frictions with one's colleagues arising from differences in personal style, values and norms. Role ambiguity is defined as the lack of clarity or uncertainty with respect to job responsibilities, or the perceived lack of important job-related information, unclear or constantly changing specifications regarding expectations and duties defining an individual's job also constitutes role ambiguity. On talking through these outcomes with the client, she felt that role overload was her priority to reduce because it had significantly increased number of emails being one of the major culprits. Although working from home, she had less time to spend with her husband and children. Workload and time pressures was the major contributor to her other concerning job demands. Role conflict was high due to a lack of coordination of deadlines, priorities and workloads between the two managers she reported to. She wasn't concerned about areas of job resources that could be improved, as she felt reduced workloads would improve some of these areas. A quick run through of the job resources definitions for you. Changed consultation refers to the degree to which employees are provided with information about organisational changes and provided the opportunity to participate in decisions that may affect their work. Co-worker support can be instrumental or emotional in nature. Instrumental support refers to practical help to solve problems or tangible assistance or aid in the form of knowledge or advice needed to resolve the issue, whereas emotional support involves care or listening sympathetically to another person. One type of organisational justice is procedural justice and refers to employees' perceptions of the fairness of the formal policies, procedures and processes used to arrive at decisions and achieve end goals and other outcomes. Supervisor support consists of both instrumental support and emotional support, like co-worker support. Praise and recognition refers to an employee's feelings of self-worth that grow from the perception that the organisation and the people they work for value them and what they have to offer. Praise and recognition from supervisors can be in the form of encouragement, compliments, and other gestures of appreciation. Job control is the degree to which an employee has the discretion to approach their work in a manner of their choosing. It reflects an employee's capacity to manage his or her activities at work, including choice of work tasks, methods of work pacing, work scheduling, control over resources, and control over the physical environment. General well-being was relatively good to being of moderate concern, except for physical well-being, of which all criteria measured were a significant concern. This wasn't surprising, given the high levels of job demands. Overall job satisfaction was only of moderate concern, even though there were significant negative impacts of her job. This was due to my client's passion for her profession and dedication to making a difference to community well-being, including as part of her role in the COVID-19 responses. My client also wasn't overtly concerned about being occasionally bullied by a colleague, which had lessened when working from home. The model which best explains my client's work and workplace design needs for working from home is this model. Excessive workloads and other associated high job demands, coupled with a high level of personal commitment to her job, far outweighed the positives of her available job resources, resulting in an unhealthy low detachment from work. Digital workplaces aren't just about place working anywhere, they're very much about time and when you work. The most important thing for my client was the ability in working from home in the future when not in lockdown, was to do the short school drop-off and pick-up runs for her children. During lockdown, having more time to spend with the children was also a priority. We talked through how the significant time spent in meetings and the reading and responding to an average of 350 emails a week could be reduced. A lot of time in meetings was spent by people individually talking about what they were doing and their priorities. What was discussed wasn't always relevant to everyone there. Often in meetings there was only a very short amount of time for people to think about decisions and options they were asked to contribute to. A lot of emails were about pushing out information to a lot of people that wasn't always relevant to everyone. Improvement opportunities discussed including using digital tools to enable people to easily find and pull the information they needed to know and act on. This could include summaries of what people were working on and their priorities. We discussed digital Kanban boards, which will provide transparency of her priorities to both of her managers to resolve. Co-creation of agendas for synchronous meetings to potentially cover off items offline prior to the meeting, keeping meetings short. Blocking of calendar time was really important to enable short bursts of more effective and efficient synchronous communication, namely phone calls, to reduce reliance on emails, and synchronous meetings being made the exception that build social and emotional connections and for fast decision making. Digital workplaces also aren't just about place and time. They're very much about creating space. Not physical space, but cognitive, emotional and social space. Space for the mind, the head and the heart. We talked through how current use of meetings and emails required fast responses without adequate individual reflection and thinking time, adequate discussion time, adequate time to explore doing things differently, innovation solutions, before a final version of the solution is presented. Spaces for supporting all the dimensions of well-being as well. Improvement opportunities discussed included the use of digital tools to enable transparency of documents that are works in progress, enabling relevant team members to collaborate on outcomes before they're finalised. More deliberate and respectful use of technology, acknowledging the pros and cons of video and audio tools and the individual needs of team members. For large groups, use video to show relevant screens of documents to talk through can be far more effective and efficient than just showing a wall of people's faces. And understanding when emotional and social nuances are important. So why is this an innovation showcase? Well, the innovation bit is we really need to reframe how we think and talk about the design of digital workplaces and work. Namely, it's predominantly about mutual respect of the diversity of each worker and their context by creating digital experiences that are inclusive, where psychosocial insights play a huge role. Respect also demonstrated through very deliberate and disciplined choices made by everyone when it comes to associated workplace practices. Want to learn more? Here's multiple ways to contact me and my colleague Simone Outridge. Thank you.